The Bengals might have been off this week, but they got some help from the AFC North. Plus, part two, that's right, part two of our conversation with Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, James Rapien. Jake Lisco, well, he's not here this second, but he will be because you're going to hear part two of our conversation with Brian Callahan. And speaking of Brian Callahan, I get it. A lot of you might have taken the week off, much like the Bengals, as far as listening to the Locked On Bengals podcast because, well, let's be honest, that week 9 loss, back-to-back losses, it was ugly. Well, if you are back and you did take the week off, welcome back. And I just want to remind you that you should check out everything you missed last week. We talked with Joe Goodberry. We talked with Bengals head coach Zach Taylor in part 1 and 2 with our awesome line of guests, but with Brian Callahan, the Bengals offensive coordinator. So you're going to hear part 2 coming up in just a second. But first, before I toss to that, just a reminder to subscribe on YouTube, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And, well, the Bengals got some help on Sunday because they're in third place in the AFC North. The Browns got just stomped. And right now, Baker Mayfield didn't finish the game. He suffered a knee contusion. They lose 45-7 on the road in Foxborough to the Patriots. And it's prime example of week-to-week league because not only did that happen, but Ben Roethlisberger tests positive for COVID-19 on Saturday. Mason Rudolph starts on Sunday. And the Detroit Lions go into Pittsburgh and squeak out a tie in what was just a quarterback clinic. Mason Rudolph versus Jared Goff. It was wild. But the Steelers fall to 5-3-1 on the year. They're second in the division. The Ravens, 6-3, still first in the AFC North. Browns, like I said, in the cellar. But your Cincinnati Bengals at 5-4, very much in the mix in third place. And they got some help with none of their opponents, AFC North rivals rather, winning this weekend. So without further ado, let's dive into part 2 of our conversation with Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan. Speaking of protection, it's something that we've talked about in Cincinnati for years and years, the offensive line. Brian, through 9 weeks, are they where you hope they would be as a group? Are they a little behind, a little ahead? And I know that's a general question, but what's your overall feeling about this group as a whole?
I've been pleased with what they've done. A lot of these it's weird because we don't give up a lot of pressure. Part of that's by design, as far as getting the ball out of our hand and making sure the quarterback can control the rush with his timing. I think our tackles have played well. They've done a nice job against some good rushers. We've helped them where we could help them with chips and things like that. But then the weird one is that we don't give up a ton of pressure, but we have a ton of sacks. And part of that is the style of the quarterback. He's going to extend some plays and he's going to be a little bit riskier holding on to the ball when he feels like he can make a play. We've taken some sacks there. And we've given up some really, poor protection sacks as far as the tight ends and running backs and their involvement in the protection scheme. So when you talk about the protection, it's a kind of a holistic picture. Guys got to get open. The 6th or 7th protectors got to protect their responsibilities well, which we've been inconsistent with. And then the guys up front got to block the guys in front of them. And for that part, I think they've done a good job, and I've been happy with what they've done. I think Quentin Spain's been excellent in protection. I think Jonah's had a really solid year, especially, he gave it the 1 sack to Myles Garrett, but, he got caught in a one-on-one spot, and Myles got him on that one. And that happens with tackles in the NFL. Riley's been a really steadying presence for us. He's a tough, hard-nosed right tackle mentality. He's helped us. And so I would say I'm pleased with that aspect of what we've done. I think we've been productive in the run game. We haven't been explosive or in a spot where we're just pounding people. That's not who we are. That's not how we're built. But I think we've done a good job. I think the offensive line has played well.
Talk about right guard a little bit, where there seems to be a bit of a position battle brewing, and Jackson Carman, your second-round rookie, looks like he's dealing with a bit of an injury. He had the back surgery, of course, in January. It looked like he aggravated that a little bit when he left the game a couple weeks ago. And now the word is Hakeem Adeniji is going to get that opportunity coming out of the bye at right guard. What led to that decision, and how does that sort of conversation happen in the middle of the season?
You look at the play. I think Jackson struggled some against the Jets. Very up and down. He's been up and down like all young players. You expect some lumps and some bumps and some inconsistencies in performance, and he's done that. I mean, he's had some really good looking reps, and he's had some reps that don't look great. And so they battle through it, and you do your best to keep working those things. And to have Akeem come back ready, he came back a lot sooner than we would have thought initially from his pec tear in the spring. And he was a guy we had really high hopes for as the season started, and we were hoping that he could ascend into that type of role. And so as he's practiced the last 2 weeks, we felt good about where he was and felt like it was the right time to see if we could settle down that right guard spot a little bit. And he played okay. It wasn't perfect for Akeem, but he earned the right to play another game and see how it goes. That's obviously been the spot that we've had to try to get the more consistency from. Really, everywhere else on the line has been pretty solid through the course of the year. I know Trey Hopkins has had his lumps as he's trying to come back off his knee surgery too. But the better we can be at that spot, the better our offense is going to be. And it's not to say that Jackson won't ever be there again at this point this year. I mean, he's certainly someone we're going to count on. And he's got a lot of talent. It's just sometimes it's helpful for them to take a step back, take a breather, and refocus and watch somebody else play for a game or two or three. And that's part of the development. He's a guy that was going to be here for a long time that we feel good about. But sometimes the ups and downs, you try to settle it some and give them a break when they need a break.
How tough is it to juggle with Trey Hopkins? The fact that he suffered the knee injury in January, probably. And you didn't know in May, June, if he was going to be ready to go for week one. And maybe you get him back after the bye or after 5 or 6 weeks. And instead he's made every start. How do you balance that? Because that's amazing with the uneven play where he is working himself back and obviously isn't the Trey Hopkins we saw last year before the injury.
Yeah. I mean, really, the impressive part is how quickly he did come back and was ready to play and help us. And it's super impressive what he did and how quickly he came back from it. And it really takes, when you look at the holistic picture of a knee injury, it probably takes a good almost 2 years to feel like you're back to where you were prior to the injury. And that's the reality of it. And I think that Trey's working through it. And then your knee feels better kind of every week that goes along. It's the same thing with Burrow. Every week that goes by, you feel a little bit stronger and a little bit better, and you still get the soreness and all the things that come along with coming back from an injury and playing NFL football, which is, it's hard enough to come back just as a normal person to feel good with where your knee's at. But, we've done our best to try to help him, get to the point where he feels good. We rest him during the week. As you can see, Wednesdays he takes some time, Thursday he takes some time. We don't grind him out during the week, try to keep him fresh and ready for the game. And he's really played better as the year's gone along. And we played some good interior fronts too, which also, makes life a little harder for those guys. We played some good interior defensive linemen. And so that sometimes those battles get lost. But I think Trey's done a good job, and he's so steadying for us because of his mental presence. He gets everything lined up the way it's supposed to get lined up. There's a lot that goes into that with the protections between Joe and him. So they're always on the same page, and Joe's very comfortable with Trey with getting everything lined up the way he sees it. So that part matters too, and he's done a good job with that. So, you balance it. If he's struggling, he's struggling, and you fight through it. And it's just kind of how it goes. And you hope that as the weeks go by, he feels better. And now as we're approaching the second half of the season, that he's feeling better each week and ready to really play his best football as the year comes to the close, for better lack of a term. It's we got 8 weeks, so hopefully we see the best of Trey here down the stretch.
We've talked a little bit about protection and taking sacks and all these things. One big thing that stood out to me when I looked at the data about this is early in the season, 40% of Joe Burrow's pressures turned into sacks in the first 2 weeks of the season. And since then, it's a much more league average, or even better than league average metric as far as pressures to sacks. against Baltimore in particular, this was a game that I think a lot of fans had circled because of the issues that Joe and the protection had with processing what Don Wink Martindale was throwing at them. Coming into that game, we saw a lot of split back protection in the shotgun, where you had a tight end and a running back there helping and maybe simplifying the protection reads. I would say that you talk a lot about multiple fronts on defense. You guys have kind of gone multiple in terms of the way you've approached protection this year based on your opponent. Is that something that has been, I assume, deliberate and planned for the opposition?
Yeah, no question, because Baltimore presents so many problems because of their personnel, where they line them up and how they line them up for you. And if you're in a 6-man protection, even though a lot of their pressures really are simulated, they only bring 4 a lot of the time, which is, probably that's what I mean by that when I say simulated, is that they present these looks where there's 6, 7, 8 guys at the line of scrimmage. They only end up bringing 4, but you don't know which 4 it's going to be. They drop out linemen, they drop out safeties. It's a very stressful week to get ready for the Ravens. I've said it before, but I think Wink does an unbelievable job with that defense and what they have there. And for us, we wanted to make it as simple as we possibly could for Joe and for our guys up front. And so some of that 2-back protection is part of where that comes from. It says we felt like we could win on the outside. And we had with T and TB and Jamar, we felt like we matched up with them as good as we've matched up with them since we've been here. It's a good secondary. They're aggressive in coverage, but we felt like we could win one-on-one outside. And so we felt like keeping 7 in protection was going to be more beneficial to us as long as we could keep the quarterback upright and keep any kind of free blitzers off of them. We had some issues with that the first time that Joe played against Baltimore. If we could keep the free runners to a very, very minimum and try to get everybody accounted for, that we could win outside. And as long as he had a pocket to throw from, we felt really good about our chances of executing against some of those pressures. So the plan worked out great. They don't always work out as good as they did in that game. But we felt like that gave us the best chance to win that game. If you try to go in 6-man protection against the Ravens, you're probably going to have a bad time most games, because they do such a good job, and they bring blitzes, whatever blitz they bring, they have a counter, and they make it hard on you. They got a really good scheme.
We'll get back to our conversation with Brian Callahan in just a minute, but I'm sure this sounds familiar. You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching the highlights on your phone. Plus, you got your neighbor's best friend's cousin's sister's mother's login for the good stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you about DirecTV Stream, because it's a simpler way to TV, and you can bring all of your favorites and your on-demand favorites and your lives and your sporting events all together in one place. You can get rid of all the different cords and devices and bring them all together with DirecTV Stream. It's bringing your favorites together like never before. No more juggling remotes, because who likes to juggle when they're relaxing and watching television? So check them out right now, DirecTV Stream, and you can learn more about DirecTV Stream at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
So we've talked a lot about individual players, about protection. We touched on this a little bit with the under center and shotgun split. And I don't know how different this is looking around the NFL. When you guys have been under center, you've run the ball more than you've passed the ball. When you've been in shotgun, you've passed the ball more than you've run the ball. And it almost seems like you're kind of dealing in 2 different offenses there a little bit. You've got your under center offense, your wide zone offense, and you've got your shotgun offense where you're doing a lot of stuff out of empty. You're doing a lot out of 11 personnel. Is it something that is just a work in progress to get all those the window dressing and all the concepts you build off of the core concepts in those formations? For example, we talked about, the increasing use of jet motion and play action and screen game from under center. I think you've done more of that as the season's gone along. And, something we talked about with you at some point is run pass option. You talked about this a little bit, where defenses were making it harder on offenses in the NFL this season, but you guys are at, I think 6.7% run pass option out of 11 personnel in shotgun is what my numbers have. And that's in the bottom third of the NFL. Do you think that, I think last time we talked, you're going to go watch all the Chiefs run pass option and see what you could take away from that. So in terms of building these concepts off of your core, your formations, your personnel, the wide zone, the empty stuff. Is that something that is developing over the course of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we have a handful of RPOs in every game plan, and that's one of the ways you protect your gun run game. And we've not done a ton of them. I think there's a handful of RPOs that we've called that we handed the ball off to, and I don't know how well those things get picked up or tracked. I would say we don't major in the RPO world for various reasons, but we try to do the things that protect a gun run game. You could take some of the pre-snap stuff when you're talking about throwing quick outs and bubbles and those types of things. Then you got your real actual like force reads where you're talking about you're reading the safety. We don't do a lot of reading of linebackers just based on the scheme, but there's places for that. I'd say we carry probably anywhere from probably between 4 and 6 in every run game plan. Actual RPOs that show up. How many of them actually get called over the course of a game? Sometimes it's 1, 2. We've had games where we've had 4 or 5 that get called. It's not something we major in. It is a part of the gun run game. You sort of have to have those elements as part of it. And you look around the league, it's really going to be pretty generally under center. If you're in the gun enough, like most teams are, under center is going to be your run and play action. You're always going to be skewed heavier in the run game under center, and you're always going to be skewed a little bit heavier in the pass game and gun, particularly if most of those things probably take out all your third downs, and it's all neutral situation stuff. So you get a pretty good feel for what you are in the gun. So it's one of those things you work through, and that's part of what we've done this week in the self scout is find some more ways to protect those numbers. And one of the things I do believe in is that tendencies aren't always bad. There's a time and a place to break a tendency. Sometimes if you have tendencies, it means you're good at something. And so that's sort of where it falls for me. And you get a chance to find ways on whatever your tendencies are. You got to find ways to break those tendencies and play off of those things. And that's part of what this week is for us, is a chance to step back and take a bigger view of where we can do things better, what parts of the scheme we could do more of, where things are heavier, statistically skewed for runs and passes and things like that. And how do we help those tendencies, and where is the right time and place to break them? So, you're always going to deal with some sort of tendency somewhere in your offense. And, when you're talking about being in the gun to throw the ball and being spread out to throw the ball, and then you got to be under center to run it. So there's a lot of things that go into building those things and trying to mesh them together effectively. And I think we've done that at times, and there's probably times where it hasn't been as meshed efficiently as we would like. And so that's part of the process of again, with a new run game system with Frank, and a pass game system that is designed for the quarterback to be in the gun. You try to find a way to make it all fit together. So, without probably giving too much away, that's sort of how it works and where we're headed. And we can do a better job of making those things fit better for us and for our players.
I know the short yardage issues, struggles, whatever you want to say, have been a topic, and we've asked you about them. And I'm sure it's been frustrating for the coaching staff, the players, et cetera. When you do that self-scout this week, are you able to hopefully find the issues and fix those? Or is that something where you need Hakeem Adeniji and company to just be better, in short yardage situations, if it's a quarterback sneak, or if it's a 3rd and 1 run, or, what's the case there? Is it finding a resolution, or is it just the players executing better, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, there's been times where we've not moved the line of scrimmage on a 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, where and there's a lot of guys in the box most of the time when that happens, and there's people that they end up one-on-one, and sometimes you just have to win a one-on-one block up front. And that's not always as easy as you'd like it to be. Those are good players that they got to go up against. And then it's part of that scheme too. How do we help our guys do better in those situations? Where do we find how do we put them in one-on-ones they can win? What position do we put them in where they can execute a job that they're capable of executing, and not put them in a spot that puts them at a disadvantage? And so we work through these things every week, really trying to figure out what the best, by what we're presented from a defense. But it's both. There's an execution part of it, and then there's a schematic part of it that both need to be better all the way around, because, it's really frustrating when we know that when we get first downs, we tend to score points, and we've just had way too many 3-and-outs in manageable third downs. Like it's one thing to go 1st and 10, a run for 0, the second down sacked for -4, now you're 3rd and 14 and 3-and-out. That happens. You hate it, but it happens. The ones that are hard to stomach are when you run it for 6 or you complete it for 2, however that plays out. Now you're in 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, and you fail at that spot when you're manageable. And that's what we talk about all the time is being in these manageable down and distances that allow us a much higher chance to convert than it would if we were 3rd and 8. And so to not get those ones in some moments that we've needed them has been disappointing. And again, it comes down to there's an execution part of it, and there's a schematic part of it that all needs to be better, so we can go get that first down and keep the drive going and go score points, because we've proven that we can do that.
We'll get back to our conversation with Brian Callahan in just a second, but I got to tell you about Built Bar, because the Bengals, well, they're on their bye week, which is about resting and recharging and refueling. And well, some of us don't get bye weeks, right? You and I, we weren't on a bye week. Jake Lisco and I didn't take a bye week. We were still here. And so when that happens, you got to fuel your day with Built Bars. Built Bars are the #1 protein bar on the planet. I love it because so many of you, even now when we go on the road for Bengals games, I've had fans mention, hey, man, I love Built Bars. Well, there's a reason. It's because they taste great. They're covered in 100% chocolate. They're low in sugar, low in calories, and high in protein. So whether you just want a healthier option in the middle of your day, or if you're trying to have some gains after a workout, you can get all of that and more with Built Bars. They come in 9 delicious flavors, including this amazing blueberry muffin one that I have right here that I can't wait to crush. So make sure you check out BuiltBar.com. Use promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. The NFL is a wild place, whether it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing to Washington on Sunday or the Lions tying the Steelers in Pittsburgh, which I don't think anybody saw that coming. But like I said, quarterback clinic. Well, BetOnline.ag is a one-stop shop where you can wager on every single NFL game. Maybe you want to wager on college football, the NBA, all in one spot. And it's simple. It's easy. They have a really, really easy web interface that you can access on your phone, on your PC, on your tablet. And right now, you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with promo code Locked On. It's that simple. BetOnline.ag, promo code Locked On. Get free money and start winning big. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports.
Looked like some of your best scripted football on offense against the Browns, interception notwithstanding. You guys essentially go down and get down to the 1-yard line, 2 drives in a row, score a touchdown once, could have had a touchdown on the other occasion. And hopefully that, just carries forward. As you say, you're working on these things throughout the season. And it's interesting. You and Coach Taylor both mentioned when you guys get the first down, you're really good at converting the drive. The stats really bear that out, especially, and this is probably pretty common, but even compared to other NFL teams, when you guys get 2 first downs on a drive, better than the rest of the NFL in converting those drives into points. So I get that being a point of emphasis, and I imagine there's some things that you're learning as the year's gone on, and they're showing up in games like the first couple drives against Cleveland, where you're finding those ways to get those drives off to fast starts.
That's the goal. I mean, we've had a couple of times this year where we haven't started fast. There's a couple of games that come to mind where we've gone 3 and out pretty quickly. And I'm trying to think of the one. We go. The Jets game was one where we're 3rd and 4 and we throw a mesh route to TB and we end up we get them all screwed up. We're on tempo on the ball. We feel like it's a good design and it's executed well, and we just get tackled inch short. We got to punt the ball back, and it's like we just, when we get first downs, we're good. Our offense plays really well in rhythm. Joe plays well in rhythm, and that's part of it. And so when we possess the ball, we tend to be able to move it at will. It's just we've had some roadblocks on the 3 and outs that have hurt us. And that's, I think our guys are playing good football for most of these games. We feel really good about where they're at. We feel good about it. So a lot of our opening drives and opening scripts that have gone well for us. And I think that we got a chance to be good down the stretch, and I'm excited about these last 8 games.
This team, Brian, seems to have stayed composed throughout this process. 5-2, you guys were excited, but you knew that there was a lot that needed to happen. You have back-to-back losses. I asked Zach this earlier this week. Why are you confident? What are you seeing? Because you're on a Super Bowl team. You've seen a lot of winners throughout your years. Why are you confident that especially the young guys that haven't been on necessarily winning teams in the NFL are going to be able to lead that push? Because you're banking on a lot of rookies or second-year players to do so. But why are you confident that they're going to be able to do that over the next 8 games?
I think these guys have a great mindset with how they approach every day, and we talk to them all the time about not riding the wave of the emotions of the season. Because the same people that prop you up when you're 5-2 and talking about how great you are the same ones that are going to rip you down when you lose 2 straight. And that's just how it goes. That's part of the NFL. And the least amount of time that you spend thinking about those types of things, and the more time that our guys spend thinking about just how do I get better every time I step out there. Every Wednesday we go to practice. What do I need to do to get better? Every Thursday, every Friday. There's a consistency part of it, and that's, to me, is really important. And I think our guys understand that, and they don't panic and they don't flinch, and they just go to work and they don't complain. They don't do anything other than try to get better. And we got great leadership, and I think we got guys that have won. And between Joe and Jamar, they've won a ton of games over their careers. Most of them, Joe hardly ever lost. It's just kind of how he functions. And so when your leader is of that mentality, it makes it a lot easier. And we got guys on defense we brought in from playoff teams, and they've been really helpful with imparting the player side of what it takes to get to that spot. And with Mike Hilton and DJ Reader, these guys that have played on playoff caliber teams and been to the playoffs and won games, that means something. That's part of the process with a young team when you bring the right veterans in to help that. So I just think our guys have a good mindset, and again, they don't panic. Things are always focused on what do they got to do to get better, and they're very, very good about hearing the truth and telling the truth. Things got to be corrected, they're corrected. If you got to be critical, you're critical. But it's not. It's all about, because we all want to get to a particular place, and at the end of the year, we want to be able to be playing a playoff game and get a chance to go do that. And so all the things that come up, I just think our guys are steady. They're consistent with their approach every week. And it's kind of boring coach speak and cliche, but it is the truth. And the best teams that I've been on have all been like that. And so I'm excited about how they've responded thus far. And like I said, the game got away from us against Cleveland, mainly due to some turnovers. I think we put our defense in a bad spot. And then we had an 11-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Jets. So it's not like I don't feel like we're in a bad place. I just feel like there's things that got to be better. But we got a good team that I think can do a lot of damage as the year closes out. It's going to be a fun stretch of games against a bunch of AFC teams and 3 more divisional games, and that's about all you could ask for.
Football will be football, I think, and it's a very week-to-week game in so many ways, quarter-to-quarter game in so many other ways. And looking back, they're all the what-ifs, but I appreciate that you as a coach, all you can do is work with what's ahead of you and work forward. And we appreciate all the time, all the insight as always, Coach, and look forward to the rest of the year.
Sounds good. It's always fun to jump on with you guys. I'm glad we had a little bit of time to do it.
That's Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. Until next time, the Bengals back on schedule next week. Hoo day, and have a good one.